Welcome to the Native Financial Sense Curriculum and Ambassador Program session. My name is Marsha Whiting. I am Si Chungu Lakota in Chippewa Cree. I am Associate Director of Programs and oversee the Native Financial Sense program at the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. AISES debuted the Native Financial Sense, supporting financial capability for Native Americans curriculum and ambassador program in January of 2020. The program, created with funding from the Wells Fargo Foundation, is designed to engage Native communities in supporting financial education for youth and young adults. Learning money management skills at an early age can help you prepare for a stable and secure financial future. AISES Native Financial Sense curriculum was designed to supplement content from Wells Fargo's hands-on banking curricula, which provides financial education for elementary, middle, high school, and young adults to help students start their financial lives smart and strong. The Native Financial Sense curriculum incorporates Native customs, traditions, and culture so that the content will be more relevant, easily understood, and applied by Native learners. The curriculum focuses on the importance of participants' connection to their culture and the important role of community educators as part of that connection. The curriculum addresses commonalities among tribes, borrowing examples from individual tribes when necessary, also provides an opportunity for narrative content to be customized to individual tribal and urban Native communities. The long-term impact of this project is to increase the financial capability of not only the Native youth, but also the professionals that deliver the training. AISES selected 25 Native Financial Sense ambassadors to deploy programming after a 2-day Train the Trainer certification during the AISES Leadership Summit in February of 2020. In this session, two of the ambassadors, Joy Curvin and Brian Boyd, will be sharing their experience in adapting and implementing the curriculum.
Hi, I'm Joy Curvin, AISES Ambassador, member of the Kiowa Tribe of Oklahoma, yet I reside in Denton, Texas. I'm an entrepreneur and CEO of Zarcode, an IT consulting company. I became an AISES ambassador because I desired to connect with and educate Native students about financial literacy, utilizing a curriculum that's culturally contextualized and relatable. Additionally, I want to encourage them to seek studies and careers in STEM fields like myself to increase our representation in the professional community. Today, I'll be discussing my experience with adapting the curriculum. Originally, this curriculum was designed to be taught face-to-face, which is my favorite type of delivery because it's more personalized. But due to COVID and our current circumstances, we're all adapting our mindset and creating online courses. Traditionally, Native students learn more by doing than by listening. So I started brainstorming on how can I adapt this curriculum to keep that in mind. So I began researching. My first thought was, which platform and resources should I use? There's a million out there, so it was tough. I had conversations with Marsha, Brian, the other ambassadors, college professors, and STEM field business owners in my community, and it helped me narrow down some choices. Next, I took cost and accessibility into mind. During this phase, I used my background knowledge and what was shared with me, then narrowed it down to what I think is best, based on choosing a platform that's interactive, user-friendly, and accessible to anyone, keeping future ambassadors in mind as well. Many educators love using Google Classroom, but I don't have access to that since I don't have an educator's account and don't work with an ISD. Many higher ed institutions use Canvas, but not everyone has access to that either. I came across a platform called Nearpod that my own daughter's high school teacher uses and discovered that they have free and paid versions. Additionally, it's appropriate for any level, whether elementary or college, and everything in between. Fortunately, planning the course has been done for us, so that part's simple, but deciding on a platform for course delivery is another. Because creating good online learning can be a challenge and you need the right tools. I hope what I've shared will help you determine what works best to create an online course to deliver native financial sense hands-on banking.
Bonjour, hello. My name is Brian Boyd, and I'm a member of the Redcliffe Band of Lake Superior Chippewas, located in northern Wisconsin on the shores of Lake Superior. I am a teacher at the Bayfield School District, and my official title is Academic Resource Coordinator. My Wisconsin teaching license is in Native American history, culture, and tribal sovereignty. I teach elementary, kindergarten through 5th grades. I go into each class once a week, and I teach 12 classes a week. The school district that I'm employed in has a 75 to 80% Native American student count, so a majority of our students are Native Americans. I learned about the opportunity to become an ambassador from another teacher who was also a mentor of mine. He shared an email, and when I read the email calling for ambassadors for this program, I became very excited. One of the hardest parts of my position is creating or finding new activities or lessons, as there really is no curriculum when we're teaching about the Redcliffe community tribal cultures. I received confirmation that I was accepted as an ambassador, and from there I traveled to California for a training. I guess I overlooked when I first applied to become an ambassador for Native Financial Sense that I would be teaching 2 curriculums, the Wells Fargo Hands-on Banking and the Native Financial Sense. And I'll get into that when I explain my experience in teaching this curriculum. So after the training, when I got back to Wisconsin, I prepped. Before I brought it into a classroom, I read the curriculum. I kind of went over it. I wanted to prep myself for any questions or prep the material so that they would be ready for the students when I brought it in the classroom. The first class that I was able to bring the Native Financial Sense in the Wells Fargo curriculum into was a high school alternative ed program. The teacher for that program is also the same teacher, my mentor, who shared the email to get me to this spot where we are at, where I'm an ambassador. So he allowed me to go into his alt ed program, which consisted of students between the grades 9 through 12, all high school. This program is a different program than the normal classrooms. So when I brought it in, I had to adjust the curriculum a little bit because these students didn't do a lot of writing. They did a lot of outside work in our community. They would go in our community. It was just an alternative program for our high school students that the regular classroom didn't work for them. So I brought this curriculum into the classroom, and this classroom consisted of both Native and non-Native students. And I was able to get 2 weeks in with the curriculum with this alt ed high school program before COVID had shut down our school district and we went to full virtual. But I want to share in those 2 weeks, the participation was great. The students were very willing to share answers and share with their classmates what they thought of some of the questions. They learned some new information, of course. And what I was very excited about was how the Native Financial Sense, when I had to develop it to fit my tribal nation, is that some of these kids didn't know some of our tribal history. And so for me, it was exciting for me because I not only was teaching about financials, but I also get to teach with something I love, which is my culture, my history, my language. And so that was a really good part of the Native Financial Sense that once I started working with, I was able to share a lot of history, not only to Native students my own Native students from Redcliffe that didn't know that, but also the non-Native students who wanted to learn more about our culture. So we brought that in. I had 2 weeks, and how I set it up was I had 45 minutes, and I would go into the classroom in the alt ed program, 45 minutes for every day. And so the first 45 minutes was the Wells Fargo curriculum, the hands-on banking curriculum. We would go through the first lesson on that, and then the next day, so on a Monday, we would do the Wells Fargo. On the Tuesday, I would bring in the native financial sense. And when you first look at the curriculum, you can say, how do these tie together? But after teaching it with all ed students, they really did go hand in hand, and it is a really great curriculum in my opinion. So the second day, we would do the cultural piece of it, or the Native financial sense piece of it, but I would bring in the cultural or the Native American history, get to share that. One of the things I learned was there were some questions that I didn't have answers to. So I had to go and speak in my communities to some tribal elders to ask them some of the questions that students were asking me, which is great. Not only are my students learning, but I'm learning. And so we would do that. I had to ask them, part of the curriculum, ask them to talk to parents, grandparents. So it's really a curriculum to where the students are able to bring it home with them, share it at home, ask those questions that they probably wouldn't normally ask. So I was very excited about it. Um, the incentive for this program for those students is once we got to the end of the Wells Fargo and Native Financial Sense curriculum, I was offering each student a $50 stipend. And once we were going to get to the end of the curriculum, I wanted to have a discussion on how we wanted to do that. Do each of the students want to just $50, or do they want to combine all their $50 and have $500 and then do a party or do something, go somewhere? But that wasn't a discussion we were able to get to as our school district went to virtual from April to the end of the school year. Last school district or last school year we went virtual, and now to start this school year we're virtual. So I was able to bring it into the high school all ed program. It was going very good. Um, Students seemed to be happy. We had a lot of good discussions. My teacher who shared his classroom with me would stay in and he would help and answer some questions. Students would ask him what about when he was their age, what was different, and so he had those shares. He's a older gentleman than I am, so even his perspective was awesome. Then I got the opportunity to bring him down to eighth grade, and eighth grade I was exciting because when you graduate eighth grade and you transition to high school, that's you become the age to where you can legally work in Wisconsin, and so I felt that this curriculum was going to be perfect because we could talk about savings and we could talk, as some of these kids shared, that they already had summer jobs lined up for the summer. So it was a really good, and I brought it in there and I had 1 week in class instruction of the curriculum. And again, it was the same thing. The eighth graders, there's a lot of participation, which is huge. A lot of times, we bring in stuff, and if kids don't know it, they're uncomfortable or they don't want to share. But I didn't experience this in either class. I thought it went very well in both classes. Eighth grade only got 1 week, but they seemed to enjoy that week. We had a lot of discussion, and sometimes you get off the curriculum a little bit, but as long as you're talking financials, you could go a lot of places with it. So as long as we're having those discussions, and this curriculum gave me like the guidance of how to set up these classroom lessons, it was really good. So I had the high school ed program I did for 2 weeks before we were let out. The eighth grade I did for 1 week, and then we were let out. So they both didn't get to complete the curriculum. Now it didn't end there. We did virtual schooling last year. It was a first time for our district, the first time for many of us as teachers. So we used Google Classroom. So I provided the opportunity for both classes, the alt ed and the eighth grade class I was working with, to accept an invitation to. I created a Google Classroom and I created lessons using Wells Fargo hands-on banking and the Native Financial Sense. So between both classes, I had over 20 students. I had one high school non-native student complete it when it was done, and earn that $50. But I feel that this curriculum should be taught in person, in my experience, because of there is a little bit of reading. When I put it online, students would have to read the lesson and then answer some questions. At that time, like I said, it was new for our district to do the virtual, so they also had their classrooms where they were graded. They still had to do their homework to get passed. So I didn't push the students. I said, this is your opportunity. If you finish, you still can receive your incentive. So I gave them that opportunity. And out of 20 students, 20 plus students, I had one that completed it. And so those were, the virtual was very difficult, but I understood, because even as a teacher, I have other classroom duties that I did virtual, and even my own culture classes, it was a struggle to get students to sign in, to log on, to be present. And so the virtual was difficult, but I was able to create a classroom and provide that offering. It didn't work out, but because I have this curriculum, I know that I'm going to be able to bring it back for the students, because I do believe it was really, really good curriculum. Not only are they learning, like I said, not only are they learning about financials as they're growing up, as we're preparing them for graduation and moving on into what they say, quote unquote, the real world, but as adulthood, I was also be able to share my passion, which is my own culture, my own history, talking about these things that some of these kids really never talked about, being junior, senior. So it was a great experience, in my opinion. I appreciated the opportunity, but I know I'm not done. I know I have a lot more. I gotta complete a full class. I gotta get that feedback. One of the things I told Marcia Whiting is that I haven't even shared with my tribal community that I received this training and that I have this curriculum, due to the fact that I want to teach it to my students first, but eventually I'm hoping to be able to teach the students and then bring it out to my community to teach young and older adults. And that's what my hopes are. And I believe there will be time to do that. And so with that, it's a trying and learning. Trial and error is huge. I learn from my mistakes. You learn something new. I'm learning on this new virtual platform, so bear with me when I'm stutter, or if you see me looking down, I have notes. So please bear with me. This is, something new for all of us, and it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but I know we could do it. We're resilient. I went online school for my college degree, so I'm comfortable with the online platform, but a lot of people are not comfortable, and that's okay. We got to just help them along with those. So there are opportunities to do it virtual. I did try it. It didn't work out. 1 out of 20. I mean, that one is great, and that student, I made sure that he received his incentive, and he did a really good job. And the other students, I'm hoping that there's still time for me to catch them, and I believe so. And within this school year too, I believe that I'll be able to bring this curriculum back. I know my mentor already has asked me that sometime this year I bring it back to his all ed program, and I said yes, definitely. So there's a lot of trial and error, but there's also a lot when you look at the curriculum. There might be some questions you have no answers for, and that's where you got to do a little research about your own tribal nation, your own culture. I mean, even if you don't know something, for me, I just tell the kids, okay, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna talk to my elders. I'm gonna talk to people who work for my tribal administration, or someone in a position who can share those answers to those questions for me. So I believe that's probably the greatest thing about this curriculum. I now have a Native American curriculum that I could tie into not only financials, but into the history, culture, sovereignty piece that I already teach. So that's probably the number one thing that when I was able to experience teaching this that came out of it is, wow, I was able to hit high school, who I usually don't teach culture and history to. I was able to hit middle school that I don't teach culture and history to. I was able to bring those teachings into those classrooms. And I'm really thankful for that, because it took me a long time to find my cultural identity. And so I want to show these kids that it's okay if you don't know this about your own culture. There's always time to learn. And so I want them to know that I'm there to help them. And this curriculum allowed that for me, my own experience. Before I end in closing, I want to thank AISES, Wells Fargo, the other ambassadors who were chosen. I want to give a special thanks, shout out to Marsha Whiting and Joy Curvin for the support for this presentation. We've been working together, Zoom or Microsoft, meeting platforms, been able to talk and work with each other. I also want to thank everyone else who had a part in creating this curriculum and providing me the opportunity and giving me the opportunity to become an ambassador and to share it with not only my students, but eventually within my community. So, Miigwech, thank you. I appreciate it. It's a learning. I think once you get comfortable with this curriculum, it's a great curriculum. And I can't say more about that. I've said it a number of times in this video, but it's a great curriculum, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to provide it. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you all, and good luck to all of the other ambassadors and future ambassadors. I think you guys will enjoy this curriculum. And Miigwech, have a good day.